the Chief Growth Officer, and she is helping Johnny and Larry, and they are with S2A Director. Johnny is the Director of National Expansion. So Sharon, Johnny, and Larry are going to be here to just talk about their project, what are their needs, what's happening, who are they, and what they're looking for from communities throughout their site location process. All right, so about GSLI. So GSLI, we are actually we're a site location consulting firm. So we help communities and companies by pairing the two together. So communities have assets, they have sites, they have workforce, they have different types of things that are very helpful for a company to know about. And so we help bring the two opportunities together. So we help these companies understand what opportunities even exist from these communities. And we are comprised of a network of communities that are exclusive members. So these are communities that pay in to be able to work all of our projects and submit sites and understand the inside information that that is important to submit a proposal. So these communities work with us on a daily basis to learn more about companies like S2A Modular and submit their community first to these companies that are looking for additional sites. And non-member communities are, we do have member communities on the call right now and non-member communities, and those are ones that have been invited to submit one site with us for the calendar year. So all of our members get a chance to work all of our projects, and then we have non-member communities that actually get one free submission with us, and they get to work a project just like our members do. Once that submission is over, then they get a chance to inquire about membership and learn more about working more projects. All right. So active projects, we currently have about 85 active projects in our project portal. Our project portal is seen here on the screen. This is our, we'll call it a database, and this is what we use to house all the companies and the information about their expansion plans in one central location for members to view information, learn about a project, learn about the needs, and make a submission of sites. So our community members, they get a chance to work directly from this portal, and non-members as well can submit one free site here, and that's found on our website, which is www.gsliprojectportal.com. If you want to check out the portal, you're more than welcome to go and view it yourself. All right, now on to Ashley to introduce Sharon with S2A Modular.
Yeah, Sharon, so I just wanted to give you the chance now to kind of give us a little background on yourself. I know you've been busy, and then give us a little more insight on the project, because when I found it, I mean, it's not often you come across projects of this size. 35 locations is huge. So I just wanted you to kind of elaborate on all of that.
Great. Thank you so much for having us, and welcome to everybody that's on the phone. I hope that Johnny was able to get in because he was having a tough time getting in, so I think he was going to call. So we have him. Just want to make sure he's worked with a lot of the EDCs across the nation, so he will be able to answer a lot of those questions. And Larry, our CFO, is on as well. So my background, interestingly enough, is architectural engineering and marketing, and then I went into tech and finance. So I'm kind of coming full circle after 35 years back to architectural engineering and bringing everything I've learned over the last 35 years and all the companies I've built, particularly in tech and alternative energy, into one place. And so when I met S2A through Larry, actually, he and I had been doing some alternative energy projects together and some fintech projects together. And he kept telling me about this amazing company. And so I finally had time to take a look and was blown away. And I think you'll see as we go through the slides that you'll be very surprised that this is not your grandmother's modular anymore. I thought manufactured homes, trailers, you know, that's what I was thinking, having been from Florida. That's of course what we think of as modular, but they're actually doing beautiful 10,000 square foot custom homes all the way down to ADUs, you know, the accessory dwellings for backyards and that kind of thing. So it's a very exciting opportunity, and their growth strategy which is now our growth strategy, is 35 factories across the US over the next 2 years, 2 to 3 years. But I've only been with the company for 2.5 months. Again, I have the support of Johnny and Larry, who have been here a lot longer. But hopefully we can answer all of your questions today and get some great sites ready to go, because we are ready if you're ready.
All right.
So I just wanted to go over the key site criteria. The acreage requirements she had said were 30 to 40 acres. They definitely need to be a shovel-ready site. You mentioned that was pretty important. And then the time frame was 6 months. So this is a quick project. A lot of the ones we deal with is 12 to 14 months out. So 6 months is amazing. The new jobs being created, you mentioned 125 the first year, and then 250 by year 2. The land costs, you wanted it to be less than 4 million, ideally, and then capital investment of 30 million. And also wanted to touch on the fact that you would like to be in close proximity to a major highway, 4-lane highway, because the trucks themselves are trucking these huge modular homes. So that's also very important.
Critical, yes.
Yeah.
I should say about the 6 month time frame, we actually are going to be in the ground, breaking ground on Jacksonville within 3 months of signing. So
Oh, wow.
that's we can move very quickly if the site and the owners of the land can move as quickly. So.
And then we added this map that Sharon had shared with us that kind of just shows, in the yellow, it shows where they opened this year in 2020, where they plan to open up in 2021, and then the following years. Obviously, they're all over the place, so I don't think that any site is off limits. Or if you want to comment on that, is there, what goes into the deciding factors of where you ideally want to place these factories?
It's all about demand. I think I didn't mention it at the beginning, but the founders, Brian and John, have a webinar along with the chief revenue officer, have a webinar twice a week. And that's why they're not on this call with us, because they're on the webinar. You can go to the website and see the link of those webinars, which gives you a lot of information and background about why we've chosen the sites that we've chosen, or the locations. And it's all related to demand. So we get about 6,000 people a week on those webinars, and those are people that want to invest in the factories. They want to invest in the company or products that the company has, such as a senior living product that we'll talk about later, I'm sure. Or they want to build their own house, a single family home, or they are developers and want to develop either commercial or residential developments. So that these dots are all about where the demand is. So we already have investors that are interested in those areas. We have developers, and we have people who want to build their own single family homes in those areas. That's what's driven. But we will look at other areas if they have access to the demand, because we know that there's a lot of migration going on, particularly, Texas, Tennessee, Arizona, Idaho. A lot of these states are experiencing a huge boom in people moving from the West Coast and other places. So we definitely will take a look at anything that makes sense.
Then we included this just to show the communities kind of what the factories would look like. And then the end product itself, which I wanted you to kind of go into detail about how customizable these homes are, because they're definitely not your typical modular home.
Exactly. And again, that's what excited me as having a background in architectural engineering. I got so excited about the opportunity to customize. So we build in squares and rectangles, and we deliver to the site, and then they're customized on the site. So you can literally have, traditional looking colonial, as I mentioned. You can have very modern. You can have any style. It can be very Spanish looking. So it's quite an exciting product. The factories you'll see are about 240,000 square feet of space in total for the 30 to 40 acres. And that includes about 10 buildings. So we have 2 factory lines, we have 2 assembly lines, we have parking, as you can see, with solar on top. There will be some space for storing the modulars as they come off the line before they get onto whatever transport they're going on to. And then there's a showroom, which is an Apple-like showroom, which will really feature all of the alternative energy products, all of the green products that we're using. And then there are 5 showrooms, and those vary in size from a little ADU to a larger 2,500, 3,000 square foot home.
Yeah, they're beautiful homes.
So, and again, you can see the reason we need to be near a lot of traffic, because we want to attract people to come see the model homes, in addition to the fact that the factory is beautiful. So it doesn't look like a factory.
Yeah. And then Larry, I wanted to open this up for you to talk about just about the local economic impact and the jobs being created and kind of the breakdown that goes into it so that the communities can take a look at that. Oh, Larry, you're muted. Sorry. Yeah, you can hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So each factory, we are inducting $20 million in capital in phase 1, and then what happens in the first year of selling the first 500 homes, we invest another half of those profits back into the factory. So in total, it's a $30 million capital injection, and that creates roughly by the end of phase 2, 250 jobs. The first year would be about 125 jobs, and you can see the breakdown there. It's about $5 million of and then phase 2 is usually phase 1 is traditionally our residential line, and phase 2 is kind of our commercial line. So phase 1, we're targeting 500 units the first year. These factories can produce anywhere from 500 to 2,000 units per year, which can equate to 4 to 5 million square feet of housing or commercial structures. So besides the direct employment, obviously there's a lot of employment. So we'll have people that are transporting. We work with local contractors to do a lot of the work. So we actually work very well hand in hand with local developers. Can you still hear me? My computer says it's unstable. Can you hear?
Yes, we can.
It's on and off, but we can hear you.
Okay. So we and we're looking to source many of these employees locally. The average wages would adjust based on market to market basis. We generally try to beat average wages. Health insurance to our employees so we can qualify for the right thing to do, but second, so we can qualify for local, county, and state tax incentives. So, and that's really a value add. We're bringing a lot of value to the keys. Likewise, if they invest in us, then we give back. It's a win-win for everybody involved. So I don't know if you have any further questions on the on this slide, but that's a general breakdown. I can't hear you.
Unmute yourself, Ashley.
Hello?
Sorry about that. I'll open this up to Larry or Sharon to answer some of these questions I'll ask. So the first one just being, what were the key motivations behind the expansion, everything that went into it, what you're looking for?
It's actually a great story of the founders. The founders wanted to build, they were both developers and wanted to build modular homes and couldn't find a factory that could actually do what they wanted to do in the timing that they wanted to do them. So they just thought, oh my gosh, let's build our own factories, which I love that. They're such, wonderful entrepreneurs to work with. And I have worked with serial entrepreneurs my whole career. And Brian and John are just absolutely, on it every single day. So that was the key motivation for building these across the nation, and obviously where the demand is.
So if you want to go,
I'll add to that.
Okay.
I can add to that too. So when I came on board in last year, we were doing in-person seminars to about from 35 to 150 people twice a week. When COVID hit, we actually went to webinars, and now we're generating traffic of about 6,000 registered users a week. So we're hearing from the feedback from those webinars where the demand is throughout the nation. And what we've generated is over 40,000 people that want us to build their home, over 20,000 developers want us to provide products so they can build homes. And we have tens of thousands of investors that express interest as well. So it is very demand driven. The benefits of and differentiators are, it's a lower cost, it's quicker. That results in lower carrying costs, lower cost of capital. It's creating jobs. It's a full ecosystem that we're bringing to these communities. So we're excited about it, and we have a team that can easily replicate that. That model factory is pretty much exactly, I can't say exactly, but for the most part, it's going to be the same print anywhere we go. So we have the same standard operating procedures, we have the same team, same design, same process. So that's what motivated the expansion. Is really actually it's surprisingly COVID related. It expanded our business more than tenfold. So
it's true.
So you've located a couple locations to place these factories, these facilities. Could you tell us a little bit more about those and kind of what made those the favorable locations?
Well, the founders they're located in Northern California and Southern California. So that drove the Patterson location, which is just north of San Francisco, and the Hemet location, which is just south of LA, north of San Diego. So those are the first two. And Jacksonville there's a very big opportunity here, by the way. The company is looking at moving the headquarters to Central Florida. So we're concentrating quite heavily on California and Florida because of, again, the demand, but also because there is a desire by the founders to move to that headquarters. So I have been looking, and Johnny has too, looking for headquarters locations in the Central Florida area. So that will help maybe with some of the people that are on the phone wondering how they might be able to bring value to us. It's very hard to find locations in that area right now. So we're looking along the I-75 and I-4 corridor that I'd mentioned to you guys. But yeah, that's how the current locations were chosen. The next locations I think I mentioned to you are Waco, Texas, Winchester, Virginia. So that's servicing, a very big demand in Texas, servicing a very big demand in Washington, D.C. area. Winchester is about an hour from D.C. So we're finding that our price point is sometimes an hour outside of these large metropolitan areas where there's massive demand, but you have great highway or freeway infrastructure to truck these, 100 to 200 miles, which is optimal. They can go up to 500 miles, but it's not optimal to truck them that far.
And then, is there anything that you've kind of noticed from picking your first facility, first location to where you're at now and how you locate and pick these? Is there something that didn't go well or that you noticed you didn't like before that, you kind of avoid now when selecting sites?
Good question. Patterson has been actually a kind of a model site for us because there was a big warehouse infrastructure there by Amazon and I think Walmart. And so that kind of taught us a bit about having some infrastructure already there. It was very, very easy for us to get in the ground and get going. And it made for a great area for employees too, because there was actually something there already created for a workforce. So we've kind of looked now in these areas where they have built large warehouses and have the infrastructure in. You have your easy ingress egress for the big trucks, which is really important to us. And they're typically close to a very big thoroughfare.
Okay, great. And then you had mentioned locating in environmentally safe locations. Is that something that you could elaborate on?
We want to make sure that the environmentals have checked out on these. That's one of the big requirements, of course, before we will even, go further to in talking about any sites. So we're working on a Plymouth, Massachusetts site right now, which we were a little concerned about, but all the environmentals came back perfectly. So that was exciting because it was the exact right location for us. But certainly we don't want to put any of the workers or the company at any risk with any environmental issues. Very, very important.
Okay. And then we talked a little bit about how a major highway is important. Could you just kind of give us a reason why, why it's so important to be close to a highway, the size of the highway, all that goes into that?
So when these modulars are finished, they're 19 feet wide. So we need for the trucks to be able to swing out and get to a 4-lane highway very easily because they're quite wide for a 2-lane road. So it has to be a very small amount of travel on a 2-lane road, if at all. Prefer 4-lane to 4-lane is what we found that is optimal for the company. The other thing is that Brian, the CEO, is very keen to advertise quite heavily for our show house, our model homes and our showroom. And so anywhere that we can put big signage up that people, will bring foot traffic into the model homes and the showroom is really important. So even if it's off in maybe an industrial park or something, if there can be signage that's on a well-trafficked area, that's really helpful.
Okay. And then I was going to ask, what are the nice to haves, but being next to a warehouse, but you kind of went into the ingress egress, why that's a good thing. Is there any other nice to haves when it comes to this, or is that the main reason?
Well, I think that obviously as close to a metropolitan area as we can get would be a nice to have, but it's not necessary. Just because it's, again, better for workforce. A nice to have would be close to a university where we can pull from not only the workforce coming out of university, but also we can work on some technology solutions with those universities. We have looked at a lot of land that is close to well-known research colleges, and we appreciate that, but it is not a requirement.
Okay. And then the utilities being used at the facility, about the solar farms.
So the goal is to be net zero energy. We are going to hook into the electricity grid in case we need it. But we are building communities. One of the products that we have is the over 55 product that I mentioned earlier. And those are net zero neighborhoods. So that is the goal with the factories to get to that. But we will. We don't need gas. Obviously, we need water. So the typical things that come in the infrastructure. But yes, the goal is to be net zero, and all of these will be powered by solar.
Okay. And then how important is an educated workforce? And then you mentioned it would be nice to be next to a university or local college, but it's definitely not necessary. So as long as the community can sustain the workforce of 250, that's what's important.
Absolutely. And safety is really important. Obviously, a safe community. Sometimes when you have to go outside of the metropolitan areas, you get into areas that are, lesser known and lesser traveled. And so the founders are very keen to ensure that our workforce is safe and living in a nice area and have amenities and, things for great schools for their kids and that kind of thing. But at the same time, yes, we are very interested. I think college towns are great towns for workforce, period. So that's why it is a nice to have if we can get close to a university or college.
Okay. And then I wanted to dive into the incentives and subsidies and how important they are to this project. So if you wanted to just give the community's idea of everything that goes into the incentives and why you need them, what's important.
Absolutely. I mean, it has differentiated. Johnny has done such a great job researching so many of the EDCs around the nation. And we have found that there are EDCs that are super keen to give as much incentive as possible. We really appreciate no impact fees. That's one of our big requirements because there is such an impact when we develop these factories. We want to ensure that that is one of the big incentives that the EDCs can bring to us. Secondly, it's really important for us to reduce our overall cost of managing the business, of going into the business, and therefore, if we can look at upfront incentives, whether those are tax, job, training, et cetera, we are going to have a big training program associated with each factory. That could be something that could be jointly developed with colleges or universities if they're in the area. So I know that many of the incentives from EDCs are job, training, and tax related. If there's a big community that's an investment community, that's also a very big pool for us. For instance, in places like Palm Beach, big companies that have moved there, have sometimes funded $800 to, $800 million to $1 billion worth of incentives from local investors. And so that makes a very big difference if there's an investor community nearby that can invest with us.
And then we were just curious about how the pandemic changed your site selection efforts, how it's going to change in the upcoming year, if it will. Do you plan on getting more aggressive, changing up the ways a little bit, or how has it affected the project in general?
Well, as Larry said, and as I mentioned at the very beginning, moving these in-person seminars, which were 150 to 300 people, to now the web, has allowed for 6,000 people to join each week. And therefore, it has accelerated, number one, the investors coming in and how quickly we've been able to fund these projects. And obviously, it has accelerated the pipeline for when these factories are actually manufacturing modulars. And so we already have a couple of full factories based on the pipeline that we have from these webinars during the pandemic. So I think people are looking for things to do. They're looking at the web thinking, good time for me to move, good time for me to do some research, good time for me to build a house. And so that has been a very positive impact for us.
Yeah, Zoom has been great this year, just being able to talk to people so quickly and actually see them and have those conversations. It's helped us as well. But thank you for answering all those.
You're welcome.
And Sharon, I actually do have a question for you that I do see coming up from the communities that are attending. What is the service area and the radius that you guys can truck the modular homes? And how would that play into communities that are submitting some sites?
Good question. The max is 500 miles, but it's not optimal. The optimal is 100 to 200 miles. If we have to, we will truck them 500 miles, but it's not good for the modular. The modular is made very, very strong in the factory, and it's made for up to 500 miles. But I don't think we want to test it that much. If we have overlapping sites that allow us to kind of have a 200-mile radius around each one, that would be optimal for us.
Fantastic. Okay. All right, so I'm going to take over this section with you, Sharon, and looks like Larry might have hopped off.
I think he got bounced. He just
he might have got bounced with his service, his Wi-Fi, and I'm not seeing Johnny on, so we might just need to have you at this time answer to the best of your abilities. And anything that we can't get answered, then we will just make sure to have those answered to the communities after the fact.
Right.
But we'll see how many we can get answered.
Thank you.
So I'm just going to start with some of the ones that have been flowing into the question and answer box. And so this first one is from Larkin Simpson, and he is out of Central Louisiana. How are you, Larkin? Thanks for hopping on. He is one of our community members, a Lighthouse member, and so he's a very involved community and actively pursuing companies just like S2A. So Larkin's question is, what are the requirements for the land? Does the company only want to own, or would they entertain a long-term 99-year lease?
Very good question. I wish Larry was on, because Larry and I talk about this all the time. Right now, the strategy of the founders is to own the land. There may be a time when that changes, but right now we are definitely purchasing the land, and we will own the factories outright. So we sell 50% of the factories. I don't know if we mentioned that. I don't think we mentioned that earlier, but when we look for investment in the factories, we sell 50% of those. Right now, that's raising 15 million, which has already been raised for Patterson in Northern California, the same for Hemet in Southern California, and we're on our way to the 15 million, finishing the 15 million in Jacksonville. And so that's a 50-50 ownership with the founders and the top company.
Okay. From an anonymous attendee, we have, is there export potential for your products? And if so, would port proximity be helpful?
Definitely. And we are looking, we had a big call yesterday, interestingly, with Hawaii, which is of course a 50 within the 50 states, but they were asking, you know, if you get your Seattle facility up, can you export to Hawaii before you open a Hawaii based or Maui based factory? And so we are obviously looking at cities that have port access. And I know there are a lot of port incentives right now. So we are interested in that. We're talking to a lot of different countries about building factories in other countries. And we do believe that even though we will be creating a lot of our own materials, we will still have to import and export other materials.
Fantastic. All right, and I also I'm going to check attendees. And Johnny, if you're on the call, if you could just raise your hand as an attendee, I'll make sure to let you in so you can help answer some of these questions. I don't want to miss you there. So, all right, next question. So from an anonymous attendee, how close in proximity to a major metro area are they looking to stay within? And you might have actually just answered this earlier about the 500-mile radius of a major metro.
Thus far, we have found great locations within an hour of a major metro, and that is optimal for us, to be within an hour of a city that has great demand.
Okay. Cindy Wallace. Hey, Cindy, thanks for joining on. Cindy just signed on as a new member today. Excited to have you on board. Cindy, you say, so this is Cindy's question, you say you want close to an interstate highway. If we are 150 miles from an interstate, but located on two major highway intersections, does that rule us out? We're also in an area close to 5 total states: Kansas, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma, and New Mexico.
Now that is very interesting. As long as it's a 4-lane highway and we can, you know, swing the big modulars in and out and on and off, then that would be definitely would be considered. And we like the central location to several states, the access to several. We're looking at some opportunities and sites right now that have that exact description.
Okay. Thank you, Cindy, for your question. All right, next one's from Pat Watkins, also another member of GSLI. Pat asks, how close would you consider building to an existing factory? We are 120 miles north of Jacksonville. Would we be considered?
Definitely. There is a massive, massive need in that area. The demand is very high. I have one developer friend that is building 8,000 modular homes in southern Georgia and northern Florida. And so that alone, by the way, each factory can build 2,000 modules per year. So that tells you exactly right there with one developer that we need 3 factories for him for year one. So yes, that would not be a problem if the demand is there. And in that area, there is demand for sure.
Okay. Sandy Allison asks, has Missouri been looked at? As have 70 and 65 highway, 50 acres on 70 and 65 highway with water and sewer on property?
That is definitely, sounds like a good option. That sounds like almost a perfect location. I have to go back and look at the Missouri numbers in terms of demand, but I would imagine if we have, I do know that we're working on a project that is, can't talk about right now, but it's going to be a very big project in that general area of the US, which will be about redevelopment of a lot of rundown areas using modular construction. So it could be a very good location for us. Would love to look at that.
Okay, thank you, Sandy. All right, Eric Montgomery asks, what is the typical service area distance served by each factory? We have answered this on the call. We'll move on to the next one. Michael Maths, if I said that correctly, do you prefer to own the factory or would you entertain leasing a build-to-suit facility?
We are not looking at, we have also tried, Johnny and I have brought some build-to-suits to Brian and John, and they are definitely not interested in build-to-suit. They are interested in only building their own specific factory because they believe that it is the optimal. There's a guy named Gary Eagleton who is with us who has worked for all the major modular companies in the nation. And he has led that design of the factory, and also Lance, who's working with us on the design of the homes. They've worked really closely with John Rowland, one of the founders who's in charge of the construction side of the business. And they found that this is the optimal factory to build, and they want to build them ourselves. So, and again, it goes back to the leasing question. It is a great idea. And from a finance standpoint, when you look at, put your finance hat on, it is great. But in terms of building the value in this company, the desire and the strategy right now is to own the land and to own the factories.
Okay. Michael Henderson asks, what are the primary raw materials used in construction?
Okay, so that is a good question for John. I can answer some of that, but I'm learning. So we're using hemp and hempcrete to build the walls and build the cabinetry, which is allowing us to build a lot of it in-house. So we're not, it's really reducing our reliance on materials such as from China. So I love that about it. It's also mildew resistant, it's fire resistant, mold resistant. So you have a much stronger product. Hempcrete gets stronger and stronger as time goes on, and it's been used for hundreds of years. So it's something we can access easily. We will use some steel and some wood, but we are trying to reduce the reliance on outside materials and create and build and use organic materials that we own or create in-house.
Sharon, this is just a branch off question. Are you going to be sourcing locally? Is that favorable to you to be in locations that have hemp industry, or how does that play into the decision making?
Very much so. That is a very big opportunity for us if we can find areas that are already in that business growing hemp.
Okay. Are you doing exporting in of products, or is mostly locally sourced?
Some locally sourced. We, interestingly enough, on the call yesterday with Maui, we are growing a lot of the hemp in Maui. So when they were asking about exporting, we said, well, actually, we're already getting the hemp from you, building the product here and sending it back to you. So building it there would, if we can find it locally, it's optimal.
Okay. Great question, Michael. All right, next question from Mary Lily. Will you be considering local raw materials? All right, that was just answered. Another question from Mary. What are specific workforce skills that you require?
Another good question for Larry. Probably has a better handle on that, but we will, because we're building our training programs, we're looking for traditional builders as well as people who understand technology. This is a very technology focused company, as maybe you have read or seen. In fact, that is what drew me, as I mentioned earlier when I was talking about my background, because I had done a lot of the lighting technology, the HVAC controls technology, the smart home technology. I've built companies in those arenas. So we are looking for that mixture of people that have the skill sets and people that want to obtain those skill sets on the tech side, on the organic materials side, and on the green and alternative energy side. So that, in addition to the fact that, of course, we need some traditional construction knowledge for sure.
Okay. Mary also asks, is rail or port access going to be important to you? And this is more of a rail served, or do you want to be near a intermodal facility or a rail site?
I do think that rail is going to become important to us. Interestingly, rail is about $1 a mile, whereas trucking is about $100 a mile, from what I understand. And so I believe it's going to become critical. Right now, the modulars aren't fitting on rail, so that's something we're going to have to work with the engineering team inside. That has been a big discussion because I think it could really reduce transport costs. So definitely a consideration, but right now it's an engineering issue that has to be worked out.
Brandon Fail asks, regarding the 1 to 200 mile radius, which you have described as optimal, what size metro areas does it make sense for you to locate near? So meaning population.
It's a very good question. We haven't looked at it as population driven. We've looked at it as demand driven. So it's very interesting. When we're looking at Central Florida, where I grew up, a very small town in Pasco County has a very big demand because people are moving from Hillsborough County to Pasco County wanting to have, over 55 related, facilities, homes. And so, and Dade City is very small where I grew up. So it's not, I wouldn't say that it is, we've looked at this from a population standpoint. We've looked at it only from a demand standpoint thus far. But it's a very good question. And I will go back and talk to Dean, who's working on gathering all the marketing information, which you can see if you go to the webinar, it'll show you all of the demand coming from each of the states, which I think could be very interesting for each of your participants. Because they can actually physically see, what's drawing us to which states and which areas and which cities.
It's good information. And I think you might have sent it to me. So we might be able just to include that in the slides when we send it out to the communities.
And it updates, I think they update it daily. So if you go to the website, you'll see at the end of each week, at least weekly, but I do believe it's actually live and updating daily as they have the webinars. So.
Great. Okay. Next up is Brad Reams. Brad is a new member of ours from Great Plains, Kansas. Glad to see you on, Brad. Brad asked, if there are local trim and cabinet companies in a location, would you look to utilize their sustainable products?
Definitely. We have, as I mentioned, we're trying very hard not to rely on a lot of the products that were coming specifically from China that, during COVID have closed anyway. So we were looking at developing and have been developing our own cabinetry from the hemp product, but certainly we want to look at everything that's out there. Definitely.
Okay. Next question is Michael Maths. Michael Maths from Southern Iowa. Would a location in an opportunity zone be attractive to maximize the investors in the facility?
Definitely. And I should have mentioned that up front. I didn't talk a lot about that. We are in the process of raising an opportunity zone fund, particularly for that reason, looking for factory opportunities in opportunity zones, and also the over 55 product called Bahia Villages that we want to put in as many opportunity zones as possible. And we have a lot of investors that ask us that question.
Okay. Paul Bean asks, any interest in the Kansas City region?
Definitely.
Okay. Justin Brown with Floydada. How are you, Justin? Glad to see you on. Also a member. Justin asks, what amount and effluence are you requiring?
What amount of, I didn't hear the word.
Effluence are you requiring?
Effluence or affluence?
Says effluence with an E, might be affluence. Justin, maybe just chat us again with what you were asking there, if we're saying it correctly. Sharon, do you want me just to move on to the next one?
Please, I'm not sure what the question
Justin,
is.
Circle back with a little bit more context with that question, please. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, anonymous attendee, are opportunity zone designations part of site considerations?
Definitely.
Okay. James Gentry asks, Is East Texas region a good fit for you? We are halfway between Dallas and Houston and 35 miles from I-45.
Definitely call us. We are looking for a site around Dallas and around Houston. We went Waco first because that was an opportunity for us, but we're definitively looking for a site either Dallas and Houston or between Dallas and Houston. So yes, and Austin too.
And Sharon, I just got some confirmation about effluence. That's sewer capacity.
Sewer capacity. Okay.
Yeah.
So
yep.
as you can see, I'm not in the sewer business.
I didn't know the word either, so we're good.
So yeah, I just in Virginia had to answer some of those questions, and better for me to get John to answer the question very specifically, John Rowland, so that I don't give the wrong answer. But if you guys can
we'll circle back.
me,
Yeah.
I'll make sure I connect him with John. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Justin, for that. And for Mary for clarifying.
Yes, thank you.
Right.
Newbies.
Yeah. So you mentioned even though you had a Waco location in Dallas, you were still considering a Dallas Fort Worth or another Texas facility. So it's not just one per state. You could have multiple per state.
Definitely. In fact, as I mentioned, we're looking at Austin, Dallas, and Houston in addition to Waco.
Okay. Would the homes, and this is from Rick Clifton, would the homes have application on the Gulf Coast?
For sure. We are looking at a location in the Naples-Fort Myers area. We are obviously looking at the Tampa area and have gone down towards the Bradenton area to look. Definitely. And we've talked about the Panhandle of Florida too. So have not found a site there yet, but are looking.
Sheldon Mudd, hey Sheldon from Northeastern Nevada. He's also a member. Sheldon asked, how many trucks do you anticipate coming and going from your facility? And would rail access benefit? That's been answered, but how many trucks do you anticipate coming to and from the facility? We can say on a daily basis and then also weekly as well.
Really good question. I do not know the answer to that, but John, that would be another good question for John. We are going to produce, 2,000 units per year. So you could probably back that into the math that you're looking for. But I don't know the exact number on trucks coming and going, but it leads to exactly what you asked before about rail. And I do believe that rail will become important. Right now, I'm not sure that it's being concentrated on because of the engineering problem I mentioned, but I do believe that in the future there will be a need. And let me go back to the Gulf question just quickly. I answered it from Florida because I'm from Florida and the Gulf, but obviously there are many other Gulf states. And yes, I think that is very interesting, especially with the access to the Gulf if we decide to export from any of those states. So obviously all the other states along there, including Texas, et cetera.
Okay. All right, a couple more questions here. We have a lot of questions coming in and we are approaching that 12 o'clock deadline. We might get these answered after the fact, and Sharon, just follow up and send these questions to you and then send a one sheet back out to the communities, because a lot of them do have very similar questions, but we need to get some answers to them because they are very thorough and getting answered to make a good submission. So we'll just answer as many as we can up until 12 o'clock. All right, so Brandon Fail asked, also separate question. I see that your firm also looks for opportunity zone investment opportunities. Can you describe your OZ investment portfolio? Are you building factories in O-zones, developing neighborhoods in O-zones, or both? Are you interested in working with municipalities to source opportunities, and what kind of projects are most attractive? It's a loaded question.
All of the above, yes. So we are looking for, it's interesting, we haven't found, I'm trying to think of the Jacksonville location, which is McClinney, Florida, is in an opportunity zone. I think it's just outside, but we are definitely interested in sourcing locations for factories and opportunity zones. And also, as I mentioned, the Bahia Villages, which you'll see if you go to the website, are the over 55 product that we would really like to put in opportunity zones. We're going to be developing 350 of those Bahia Villages across the nation. So 10 of them in each of the locations where we have factories.
Okay. Mary Lily asks, how do you handle the solar portion of your project?
So we have an exclusive agreement with a graphene solar company that is more efficient than most other solar that's out there. That if you want to go into more depth about that, Ryan is our CTO, and if you would like to be connected with Ryan, I can connect you guys.
Okay. This is going to be our last question because we have a couple more things to get through on the PowerPoint. And like I said, for anyone that has submitted questions, we will get these to the S2A Modular team, get them answered, and then back in your hands in one sheet to make those submissions. So thank you guys for your patience. All right, so last question. I see Boston as a planned site. What sort of demand for S2A Modular have you seen from the New England region in general?
Huge. We are, as I mentioned earlier, looking at a site in Plymouth, Massachusetts right now, very close to actually signing that deal. I had the call from Hartford that was generated from you guys
Gene.
yesterday, but I unfortunately missed the call. We were on so many calls yesterday. So I plan to speak to Hartford again today, or first call on Hartford today. And so we've looked at Vermont locations. The Northeast is absolutely a massive opportunity for S2A. And if you, again, look at those demand numbers, you'll see that they're coming from New York, New Jersey, Vermont, New Hampshire, Connecticut, definitely Massachusetts. So, and I was talking to Brian earlier this morning about looking at logistics in that area and where might we place other factories to come on the heels of the Boston or Plymouth factory. So yes, that is an active conversation right now.
Great. All right, so we're going to move on just to the submission guidelines, because I know, Sharon, we wanted just to make sure that for the communities that have attended and want to make a submission of sites, what is that structure? This is always something that they spend a lot of time putting proposals together, and we just want to maximize their time, make it efficient, knowing exactly what they need to provide in a proposal to you so that you guys aren't having to sift through a lot of information that you don't need, and they're not providing a lot of information that you're not going to end up looking at. So we wanted to make it as efficient and maximize that time. So when you're thinking about a format for responses, how can communities structure that format for you to really maximize exactly what you're needing to see for a site?
Very good question, because you're right, it is a lot to sift through. And it's, I think we talked about yesterday or the day before when we talked about the questions, and that is that if you can send your top 3 to 5 sites, given the information that we've discussed on the requirements, that would be really helpful. Sometimes we get 25 sites, and it's for us to sift through them. It's really, really helpful if you can help us hone down to that 3 to 5 top sites that are, right location in our price range, et cetera. And then show us the traffic flow on the major highways or interstates near the location. That's really important. Any environmentals that you have that you can submit that show that it's the property is environmentally sound and safe is really helpful. And then any workforce information and any incentive information that can be submitted. If that's all kind of in one fell swoop, it's really helpful for us to get through very, very quickly.
Okay, and would you like a cover letter just expressing how they fit the needs of this project, or you say, nope, just send me the data and the facts and the sites? What would you prefer to see?
Well, cover letter is helpful for us to understand what the driver is of them wanting the factory in their locations.
Okay.
Is this something, we haven't run into a community yet that has said, no, we don't want anything like this in our community, but there may be people who don't want factories in their communities. And so, why would this be a good thing for your community? Certainly bringing jobs in, bringing capital investment in, all those are great reasons, but you don't want to be disliked by the community. We want our employees to have a great place to live. That's really important to us and the founders.
Well, Sharon, it's kind of cool because we went to the IEDC conference, which is a economic development conference, and some of the speakers were talking about the need for companies to create those jobs, but you guys fill the need of also creating housing too. So it's a really cool project that you're the best of both worlds, because a lot of these cities still need housing. And so I don't know who wouldn't want you, but it's great to see a project like you guys come around, because you are fulfilling two different needs.
And we're doing a lot of workforce housing, by the way. The demand for workforce housing is huge. And so we're working on a specific product for workforce housing. And I know that that can also help in some of these more remote areas that aren't, right around metro areas. There's just a massive housing need. And there are 10,000 people a day retiring, which is why we've created this Bahia Village product, because there is a price point and architectural look that is so different from what you see in most senior living facilities. So if you look up the Bahia Villages product that we've created, you'll see that it's a very attractive product. And oh, by the way, they're net zero energy, as I mentioned, and they come with a Tesla Powerwall and a Tesla 3 car. So
who wouldn't want a Tesla?
Exactly. So this is the first time I'm happy to say I'm 57 and I want one. So
I'm like, I want to retire early and get one myself.
Exactly. They're great. They're at a great price point. For California, they're at a $399,000 price point, which you can't buy a postage stamp in California for $399,000. So it's a very exciting product for us. And again, like I mentioned, we're going to be building those Bahia Villages around each of the factories. Those will take about 10 acres apiece. That's another opportunity for your attendees. But we want to make sure we get the factory locations first, and then we'll look at the Bahia Village opportunity, or villages opportunity in the area.
And you also mentioned incentive packages. Is that something, since this is a first round through our organization, do you want the communities to submit their best estimate for incentives or a full package? How would you recommend seeing that information?
That would be really helpful, because it actually, when we're comparing and contrasting, it really helps us say, okay, we have two sites that look like they're really, really good, but this one has better incentives for us, and this community really wants to attract the company. That helps us. And by the way, most of the incentive packages are similar. So it just really helps us. Okay, this one may give us a couple of million up front. This one may give us, a couple of million in year two, whatever. It's just really helpful to see it as a snapshot.
And off the top of your head, do you know what incentives might be more beneficial? Are the ones up front, or providing long-term reduction for cost? What would you prefer to see for incentives?
There was a question earlier about property, and obviously it was related more to leasing property or to having a facility already on a site. But we have talked to a lot of EDCs that own land that want to do a swap with us, so for equity in the factory. So that is really interesting to us to talk about. And we are talking to several EDCs that have that option. There are many EDCs that don't own land, but that know private landowners who also may want to, as an investment, trade land for equity in the factory. And so we're very interested in those conversations.
Okay, fantastic. And I know we are 4 minutes over 12 o'clock Central. So we just went ahead and put in the chat box the JOT form that we are using for submissions to come in for S2A Modular. I know, Sharon, we're going to be collecting those submissions and then funneling them right to you. I'll just go ahead and go to the next slide so everyone can see. What we're looking for is the form with the proposals to be submitted, letting us know, do you meet all these minimum requirements that S2A is looking for? And those will be formatted and sent back to you, Sharon, and your team to vet, to review. And we also will do vetting on our end to make sure that those meet your exact needs before they're sent over.
Okay, great.
Caresta had put the link to that for communities to make a submission straight from that JOT form link, and that's found in the chat box. Okay.
Great. And I so appreciate your time and putting this wonderful meeting together, and I look forward to meeting many of your members and first timers.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time. We've greatly appreciate you having you on. So thank you. And thank you to all the communities that joined us. we appreciate your time, and keep an eye out for the recording, the slides, the JOT form for the submission link, all things from this webinar to be sent here shortly this week. So we appreciate you once again. And if you need to get in contact with our team, here's some information you might have heard from Carol Harris and Amanda Tompkins. They are our account executives, territory managers, and so you can work directly with them if you've been in contact with them. You also can reach out to Ashley Kleinsorge. That is her email and extension. And then we ask all submissions to come through the JOT form to be forwarded to the S2A Modular team. I'll leave that up there just for everyone to see. But thank you guys again, and I'll end the webinar now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
Bye-bye.
thanks everyone.